going on in their environment. They looked at the trees, they looked at the birds, and they said this to themselves. Birds make up what? 10% of the oxygen that we breathe. They're contributing to the human paradigm. Just think about this. This is why it's all one mind. It's not different. All animals on life is part of man consciousness. It's not one conscious, it's one consciousness. It's not broken up into the different divisions of sets that we see. So we look at bees, and when they can't find their way back to the hive, that's called colony collapse disorder, right? And our cell phones is doing it, and the wireless systems is throwing off their navigations. And what we're doing is compromising the integrity of our ability to breathe, because they accommodate for 10% of that which we breathe in. So that's bees. We look at ants. Ants burrow into the ground, but it makes the ground porous enough so there can be air there so plants can grow. That's amazing. We look at a jellyfish that has no brain, but it's alive. But it consumes the microorganisms that, had the jellyfish not existed in the sea, anything that we eat from out the sea, whether it's fish or seaweed, whatever the case may be, we would die because of the jellyfish is not in the sea, consuming the dangerous, detrimental microorganisms that would kill us. The jellyfish are not there, we would die. So what's the model? What is the working model? Everything seems to be working in conformity to the better advantage of man to progress consciously. You see what I'm saying? It can't be by accident. You name anything on planet Earth, and I'm gonna show you how it's connected to man. So man conspired these different events to advance himself, being part of a consciousness that bear witness to itself, which caused matter and antimatter to collide. And this is what I'm getting from my ancient Kemetic sciences. And I'm like, you know what? It's deep. It gives me chills. So I don't even though there's diversity, I don't set these things apart. I realize it's just one thing. So I don't undermine animals, and I don't undermine the plants, because I know that they're all working in conformity to advance us. And if we were to destroy ourselves through nuclear warfare, there's bacteria that have spores, right? So what they call them. And these spores create a shell that's encapsulated around the bacteria that can withstand any type of heat or any type of cold known to us. And all it does is makes two forms of DNA, one that exists outside of it and one that stays inside of it. And when the setting is right, when there's the right amount of ammonia, methane, ultraviolet rays, when the setting is right, the prototype for the first cell can be created all over again, because it'll open up and it'll distribute the DNA all over again. Now, who created that? Now, we can call it God. I don't mind. I'm just saying, when it comes to the original African archetype of conception, I want to use the words and the terms that they use, because we genetically have an affinity with the tones. So when we speak it in the tones that our ancestors demonstrated when they spoke, perhaps it may wake something up in us that's dormant to reestablish these same ideals. So I choose to say nature, but ultimately, whether we call it God or not, it's okay, because that could be your objective focus, because man tends to want to make things have eyes, nose, and lips just like itself. So we'll find that the angels are in heaven with white robes, and God has a throne, so he must have buttocks because he sits on it. And then if there's white robes, then I have to wonder if there's sewing machines. And if there's sewing machines, are black people enslaved there? Are they picking cotton in heaven? I don't know, because if there's white robes, then there's cotton. And if the devil was able to wage war, Revelation chapter 12, verse 7, and be kicked out of heaven and cast where? To earth. If he can take a third of the stars or a third of God's congregation with him in heaven, then, I mean, he's a very convincing dude. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And if he can come down to heaven and beguile Eve, I'm not confused about that. This is only a man or an entity that existed in God's kingdom that was able to convert 1/3 of God's congregation, who was man, that just was created to not be confused or deceived by someone with so much experience and so much wisdom. So, I mean, that's the narrative there. That ain't me talking. That's the narrative there. And if Job can walk around, if we could go in the book of Job and we could see the devil walking to and fro, and God asks him in Job 7:1-8, where art thou come from, Satan? And he says, from walking to and fro in the earth, not on the earth, to and fro in the earth. If he can do that, and tell God, he just comes into his meeting with the angels, and God said, where you been this whole time, walking to and fro in the earth? But hold on, didn't in Genesis 3:14 he got put on his belly? But now we in the book of Job, and he walking around to and fro in the earth. And you know what God said? Let's have a bet. Try my servant Job. And guess what? Job gets balls on his skin and famine. And he loses his family because of bet that God got to have with the devil. But this is what we teach our children. It's okay. And then we can sing Rockabye Baby on the treetop. When the wind blows, the cradle rock. Who's going to put their baby on top of a tree and wait for the wind to blow to see the cradle to rock, and possibly the child dies? Yeah. And then we're going to also sing Old MacDonald Had a Farm. E-I-E-I-O, right? But then we got to look. A, B, C, D, E, fifth letter. I, Roman numerals, 6. So we got E-I, 6, E-I. 6 and O is the 15th letter in the English alphabet. And 1 plus 5 is 6. So Old MacDonald Had a Farm, E-I-E-I-O, 6, 6, 6. Maybe we tripping. You know what I'm saying? So I don't even talk to people much because I don't want them to think that I'm crazy. But this can't be by accident. It can't be, right?